evening, and it is Thursday evening. It's the 5th day of December. December hustles along, trying to get past this month. I'm Jerry George. It's time for another edition of Mek We Chat. We meet here every Thursday evening to give you update on what we think are some of the Caribbean important issues for discussion. Obviously, this evening, Dominica will be in the crosshairs since they go to the polls tomorrow at December 6th. All right, so here we are, and as I welcome you this evening, we have a small number of suspects for the start, but I'm sure the others will be joining us. We have George Grant as usual at controls, up there in London, Catherine, and Bev Sinclair, producer in St. George's, Grenada. Beverley, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome again. Thank you for joining us. Happiest place on radio. And this evening, I tell you some things happening in our Caribbean. We're going to be talking about it. As our chief suspect had said, Dominica is in the crosshairs. And we're going to be listening to what I don't call him prime minister right now. He's a candidate in the election. Mr. Roosevelt Skerrit has had to say. We want to hear what he had to say, and then we'll talk a little bit about that. In addition, if we happen to get on to anything else, we want to look at 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, and then what? And right in line with that, we want to look at SVG's frightening rape culture. We also want to maybe take a little look at Grenada's statement on diplomatic appointments, something that came out of the GIS in the wake of the Al Jazeera documentary. So that's what we have on our menu this evening, folks. And that's a lot to chew on, even if it doesn't sound like a lot, it is a lot. So we're going to get right into it and get going. And chief suspect, you can start anywhere you want to. You want us to listen to Roosevelt first? Georgia?
Yes,
Georgia,
yes.
You have that ready?
Of course I have that ready. Of course I have
Never
that
slacks on the job.
yeah. And by the way, this is an address he delivered about 24 and a half hours ago, 7:30 or so last night. All right.
Yeah.
So here comes, oh my goodness, look at who's popped up here. I thought this man might be out on the campaign trail.
No, we need him here.
Oh,
man.
I see,
He's here tonight.
I see. Good evening, sir. Mr. Martin.
Welcome, Artie.
More of your head, Ati.
Artie sounds like he's listening to some sort of political speech, Jerry. Okay. Anyhow, let's just go ahead with the statement from
Mr. Skerrit.
From Mr. Skerrit. Here we go.
Dominicans, good evening. I crave your indulgence once again to reiterate my total abhorrence of the behavior of persons in positions of influence who are causing the destruction of Dominica's good name and its image abroad. General elections will be held in the Commonwealth of Dominica on Friday, the 6th of December, 2019. Let us be very, very clear about this. Let us be clear also that the intimidation of voters and other law-abiding citizens in this country will stop in the prelude to voting. I will not have lawless persons attempt to frustrate decent voters on their way to the polls or destroy the democratic process in Dominica. Law enforcement officials have exercised as much restraint as is humanly possible. They have endured verbal abuse, physical abuse, threats of violence, injury, and even threats of death. Many law-abiding citizens have been harassed. We saw on video on social media His Lordship, the Bishop of Roseau, enduring the worst kind of vile and filthy verbal abuse. and, quite frankly, assault, as persons in Marigot got into his face to shout their abuse. This is the constituency of the leader of the opposition, United Workers' Party. This is where the road blockage and burning of waste in the public road started. The chief abuser of his lordship, the bishop, seen clearly on video, was Brian Linton, the brother of the leader of the opposition. Getting to the airport via the main route to Marigot is now akin to walking the gauntlet. The bishop and other travelers had to physically carry their suitcases along the streets, past burning debris in Marigot, as they endured the abuse of the supporters of the leader of the opposition. It is clear that the leader of the opposition, Mr. Lennox Linton, does not have it in him what it takes to publicly apologize to his lordship for the conduct of his brother, Brian Linton, the UWP supporters, and the UWP supporters. Even Lennox Linton does not like the person. He should respect the office of the head of the Catholic Church in Dominica. He owes his lordship, the bishop, an unqualified apology for his brother's conduct and that of his supporters who acted at his behest. I therefore take this opportunity on behalf of the Christian community of Dominica to apologize most sincerely to his lordship for what must have been a very frightening encounter and experience as he went about his lawful business. I am quite alarmed that to date, other church leaders have not found it necessary to lend a voice of concern, if not condemnation, to the campaign of hooliganism embarked upon by the leader of the opposition and Edison James, the former Prime Minister of Dominica. Mr. James is clearly seeking relevance at the expense of decency and at the expense of his country. I am yet to understand Mr. Linton's thinking in this matter, other than a love of violence and lawlessness. The economy of this country is now being adversely affected. My dear people, we awoke this morning to the hurtful news of the cancellation of some flights by Seabourn Airlines due to the hooliganism of the supporters of the opposition. I must also inform you that the cruise lines which visit our shores are now also contemplating whether they will suspend calls on Dominica indefinitely. This morning alone, December 4th, the Azamari Journey, a cruise ship with about 1,000 passengers who were to spend the day in Dominica, turned back and will no longer enter our port. This ship visits Dominica once every two years, and such a cancellation is a major loss. Executives of the cruise line felt compelled to take this decision as a result of the negative feedback they have been receiving about the violence and scare tactics employed by the opposition in various parts of Dominica. The United Workers' Party and its leadership have publicly condoned the actions of these lawless pockets of their supporters. We in Dominica have prided ourselves on the country's reputation as one of the friendliest, the safest in the Caribbean for our people and for our visitors. Dominica has spent years building and improving on our reputation as one of the best ecotourism islands in the Caribbean. What it took us years to build is now being destroyed in the space of a few days for the selfish gain of a single group. The Ministry of Tourism has also received calls from other cruise lines querying the safety of the passengers in Dominica. The actions of the leadership of the United Workers' Party and its supporters are impacting negatively on the image of Dominica and ordinary Dominicans are now beginning to feel the repercussions of the UWP's callousness and indifference. Hair braiders, vendors, tour operators, entertainers, artists, popular tour shops, such as the Kalinago Territory, tour stops, such as the Kalinago Territory, clothing and souvenir vendors, bars, restaurants, shopkeepers, wholesalers, those who set up their tents last night, taxi drivers who lined up this morning, service providers at the various sites, all waited and looked forward to the arrival of the Azamari journey. They were all very disappointed at the news of the cancellation. All these people, their families and staff, will feel this loss in their pockets. Dominica cannot afford to receive another black eye at the hands of the United Workers' Party. We have worked too hard, done too much, and come too far to build a solid, positive national reputation, to have it destroyed by this lawless bunch. Just imagine visitors trying to get back to the ship or airport and being stuck behind one of the blockades of the UWP supporters. Just imagine their fear and the fear that they could have. This is a most unfortunate situation. But as a consequence of the recklessness and immaturity of the opposition leader and his supporters in Dominica, and after consultation with several key stakeholders, it is my duty to inform you that our worst fears have been realized. All cruise ship calls to Dominica have been cancelled, effective immediately, and that cessation of services shall remain in effect until after the general election period, when, hopefully, this madness would have subsided and we would have bring to an end to this unwarranted blotch on our otherwise pristine record of peace, safety, and tranquility. I hope the leader of the opposition, Mr. Lennox Linton, former Prime Minister Mr. Edison James, and their foreign partners and advisors can sleep comfortably tonight, knowing that they have now left scores of families in Dominica penniless for the next few days and possibly weeks. This is a sad, sorry day in the rebuild efforts of this country. The lawlessness and irresponsibility of a thoughtless few will now jeopardize the social and economic well-being of all. They are seeking confrontation. Their wish is to be arrested. Their wish is for national unrest. But I urge law-abiding citizens to continue to display restraint. Let us get Friday's election behind us. Let us conclude this process peacefully and without strife. This lawlessness shall come to a screeching halt immediately thereafter. I give you my word, my dear citizens and residents. Let me pause to assure all our people that we will remain a safe island, as there have been no injuries to persons or deaths. Furthermore, we have just received additional manpower from the regional security system to ensure all our people and visitors are safe and free to move around. Please let me speak to this matter from the wider economic perspective. I wish to remind all Dominicans that with the demise of bananas as the mainstay, tourism is now the lifeblood of our economy. The government is in the process of building a modern tourism plant, spearheaded by several world-class international hotel brands. The construction of a new airport, which the Chinese have agreed to finance, is intended to strengthen the tourism sector. After all that Dominicans and the government have accomplished to build this country back after the ravages of Hurricane Maria, there could be no worse blow to our efforts than the suspension of airline services and now cruise line services. A suspension which is not as a consequence of bad weather, but is a direct result of bad behavior. One wonders how any political party or leader could so uncaringly act against the interests of the people and country they say they want to lead. The recklessness, lawlessness, and hooliganism sanctioned by Mr. Lennox Linton and embarked upon by a lawless handful of his supporters, particularly his own constituents, is now tearing away at the heart of Dominican tourism experience. If we do not have peace, safety, and tranquility, we have nothing to offer as a tourism destination. The behavior of Mr. Linton is also of tremendous concern to other world leaders, many of whom have been extremely generous to Dominica in recent years. It is not for me to articulate their future foreign policy decisions, but I can assure you that many leaders with whom Dominica currently enjoys very close and cooperative relationships have made it clear in recent days that they cannot and will not be associated with an administration
the flight charter
capable of behaving in the manner
and the
that
plan
we're
was
now
for them to
seeing
take
from Mr.
the
Linton and his cohorts.
ferry over.
And let me say,
But there appears to be
this
some
lawlessness
glitch
and
with the
hooliganism
ferry program.
is not hurting the Dominican
Somewhat
Labour Party.
Yes, you mean people must be fearful now of bringing the ferry?
To the contrary,
Kind
analysts
of,
may
but
one
also,
day reason
remember there's a national strike in
that
France.
its impact
yeah,
on
that's right,
decent
that's true.
people
So
and
that would
independent
ripple
voters
down to Martin.
was
Well,
so
it's France,
serious
it's France.
that it might actually have helped the Dominican
so
Labour Party.
while one or two
What is
ferries
of
came in,
concern
but
to
nowhere
me,
near the numbers
as your Prime Minister,
that
is that
were
the
expected.
recklessness of the
So they're
opposition
trying to
is
so,
hurting
so
Dominica.
Mr. Skerrit issued an announcement
Next Monday morning,
that they will now fly
general
in
elections
to
would by
Canefield
then have
Airport
been behind us.
in Little
But there will be a
Plains.
massive cleanup
So he's
operation
insisting
ahead
on them
of
getting
us.
here.
One
Clean up
aircraft
of
bringing
our
in
streets
200
and
persons,
clean up our
and the
country's
small craft
reputation.
carry maybe 7,
Only Almighty
10,
God
9
knows
passengers.
how long
Maximum.
They have a
that
lot of
cleanup will take.
Ferry to do.
Thinking
Um,
Dominicans must ask themselves,
I'm
should the very
very
people who are creating this
uneasy from a
carnage on the streets
safety
of Dominica
standpoint about that.
be
because
entrusted
Yeah.
with the
You
task of
probably
national
recall that
cleanup
is not an entirely
and
safe
national healing?
airport.
Oh, one of my
Can they be
scares and
trusted?
flying came in that same
Will
airport.
they be interested in
That's
such a
right. So
task? What would be their
that's
style
problematic.
of
That's
governance?
problematic. And so
Dominica must
so,
now rebuild
and some of
relations
these aircraft are
with the
supposed
outside
to
world.
arrive
Dominica
in
has to
Martinique
repackage
tomorrow as
and
well.
remarket itself
So I know
as
the
a safe,
poll is tomorrow. The
peaceful,
polls open tomorrow
and
morning.
fun-loving place
So
to visit and
it's-
relax or do business.
I guess the big guy put
This will not be an easy task at all. The winter season has already started. Given these present occurrences, it may now very well be a bleak one for Dominica. I am deeply concerned about the short and medium-term impact of this lawlessness and hooliganism on safety and on the social and economic fabric of our society. So concerned that I requested sister nations in the regional security system to send us support for our police force, just in case the instigators and perpetrators entertain the idea of continuing their nonsense into tomorrow and Friday. As a consequence of that request, both police and soldiers from regional law enforcement agencies coming together under the ambit of the regional security system have arrived in Dominica to assist with the preservation of law and order in our country. I am determined to keep the majority of citizens of Dominica safe from the few opposition hooligans. At this time, we are inconvenienced by the lawlessness and hooliganism of some, with the blocking of roads and burning of tires. This burning is already taking a toll on many asthmatics, elderly, and other persons who have adverse reactions to such smoke. It is clear to me that the leadership of the United Workers' Party does not care what their lawlessness is doing to the health of the country, the economy, and certainly not to the health and well-being of ordinary Dominicans, some of their own supporters included. I wish to assure residents that law and order in the country will be maintained. We have exercised considerable tolerance. We have tried to reason with these people. We have appealed to the leaders to change course. We have appealed to the church and the private sector to lend a voice of wisdom and guidance in this matter. We have asked the leader of the opposition and his party to call for calm and restraint, and to ask their supporters to stop the injurious behavior, but all to no avail. I say to you today, law and order shall be maintained in the Commonwealth of Dominica. There shall be free, fair, and peaceful elections in this country on Friday. I have given both the airlines and the cruise sector our assurance of safety and security for the guests while visiting our island. I appeal once again to those misguided youths acting on the direction of persons who should know better to cease and desist from the flagrant violation of the law. Please walk away from your lawless behavior. I have a duty to ensure that law-abiding citizens can go about their business free from fear and without intimidation or unnecessary inconvenience. As Prime Minister of this country, I met with the High Command of the Police Force to make clear that law and order must be maintained, and that, as of tonight, perpetrators of lawlessness who endanger the rights and well-being of citizens and visitors must be dealt with, utilizing the full force of the law. I appeal to supporters of the Labour Party, to all citizens, residents, and visitors to our beautiful country, to turn the other cheek. Please turn the other cheek. Ignore those who are bent on confrontation and provocation. Be assured, however, that in short order, what needs to be done to preserve respect for law and order in this country will be done. Dominicans living and working abroad, I wish to appeal to you to get involved in this discussion. You have as much at stake in this matter as those of us living on island. You need to call your family and friends in Dominica and admonish them against continuing this silly behavior or sanctioning the actions of those behind it. It is serving no useful purpose. It is harming the image of our island. To those of you who wish to come home and participate in these elections, you are most welcomed to do so. You have nothing to fear. Voting in Dominica is free and fair. Dominica, in spite of its lawlessness, is safe. Dominica belongs to Dominicans. You are Dominican, and you have a right to participate in determining the future direction of this country. Fellow Dominicans, I am unlikely to address you again before the start of polling. I appeal once again for peaceful general elections. I appeal again for common sense to prevail. But I assure all Dominicans that this lawlessness shall end, and it shall not be permitted to in the democratic expression of will by registered electors in this country. Thank you for listening to me. And again, I give you my personal assurance that an end to this unsavory episode is at hand and will be brought to a halt within a matter of hours. Law-abiding citizens of this country can be rest assured of this. I call again for peace. I call again for the respect of law and our laws and our systems in this country. May God bless our country. May God bless our efforts. And may God continue to guide over us in this difficult period. And again, rest assured that we shall hold general elections in Dominica on December 6th, and people will be able to exercise their franchise and the democratic right to so do in an atmosphere of peace, tranquility, and we will have free and fair elections in the Commonwealth of Dominica. Thank you very much. God bless you. Have a wonderful evening.
Hello, we hearing you.
Okay.
George not hearing?
Okay. All right. So George, would we be able to take the break then, since it's almost break time? And then when we come back, we talk about this call to arms. Yes, let's take the break and come back.
Why wish upon a star, for a bank is better by far. Whatever you're wishing for this Christmas, will give you low interest and no fuss.
Co-op Bank is making Christmas wishes come true. Fix up your home, treat your loved ones, and get everything on your Christmas list this year with our no-fuss loans. As we count down the 12 days to Christmas, you can win awesome prizes every day. Special terms and conditions apply.
Christmas wishes come true with Co-op Bank and you.
Welcome home.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Because your vehicle is a necessity, being roadworthy is critical. Hubbard's Motor Department introduces its new tire and battery sales and service outlet located at Building Supplies Compound in Grand Dams, close to the Sugar Mill Roundabout. Available are a wide range of competitively priced tires, maintenance-free batteries, oils and lubricants. Keeping in mind your busy schedule, this outlet is equipped to provide you with fast and reliable service. Simply drive in and you'll be delighted with your service experience. For more information, contact 440-2087. Hubbard's. Quality service. Affordable prices.
Christmas safety tips. Always unplug Christmas tree lights before leaving home or going to sleep. Check your tree lights and outdoor lights for damage each year before you use them. Discard lights with frayed wires, loose connections, and cracked sockets. Do not overload your wall outlets or extension cords. Remind children never to touch lights or outlets. Select lights appropriately. Never use indoor lights outside or vice versa. Happy holidays from Grenley.
All right, we're back with the usual suspects, and yes, so am I. Top left of your screen, there's Catherine Edwards. Then I'm off in the middle there, and Jerry is smiling his little face off. On the right, bottom row, two big guns. Atherton Martin, who's in Dominica, and we're fortunate that he's with us tonight. And also Beverley Sinclair. Beverley, it's all yours, my friend.
Yes, I am actually turning over to Jerry to lead this discussion because we just listened to roughly 20 minutes of Roosevelt Skerrit, the leader of the Dominica Labour Party, vying to win his fourth term, right, and to be returned as Prime Minister of Dominica, no doubt, because, these political parties have one political leader, and that's the person who is usually selected as Prime Minister once they win at the polls. So, Jerry, we can talk about it. One observation that I make during his speech, is the way he said, I have no intention. I will not have lawless persons attempt to stop legitimate voters. And I'm like, okay then, that's an interesting statement, So take it away, Jerry.
Yes, I thought quite a number of unfortunate things that have happened during all of this campaigning. But I thought last night, whoever the Prime Minister, here comes Dwyer. Welcome, Dwyer. Whoever the Prime Minister's speechwriter is,
hold on.
Bev, your mouth is going, but we're not hearing you.
Is he still Prime Minister?
Well, okay. Whoever he's Prime Minister, because he's from a titular position, yes, he can still wield the certain powers. But yes, whoever writes his speech, I've let him down. Because last night's speech had nothing of leadership in it. Yeah. Whatever the situation is, a leader must always have that try at his level best to pull things together. And I plan to go back over that speech and see how many times he called names in that speech. Lawless, hooligans. I'm going to go back to that speech and number them. Because you do not fix something by doing that, by denigrating people. And that is, to me, the first sign of a lack of a true leader. Whatever else you might say for me, that's what my takeaway from it is. Especially in such a critical moment. Even if you feel strong, it's not something to be done. But along with that, the Prime Minister took quite a bit of opportunity to have a campaign speech, the airport, and the importance, what they plan to do for tourism. He took about 3 to 5 solid minutes. That, as far as I'm concerned, is nothing but your campaign. Clearly appealing to his listeners why they should come to him. He said all the world leaders want to know what's happening with against what is happening in Dominica. I nearly passed out of that. All the world leaders.
All the world leaders.
Yes, and that he has given them his guarantee that all will be well. I said, boy, you're brave.
But that is what he kept saying throughout his speech, I have given assurance, and I have done this, and I have done that. I don't think he set out to show any leadership in that speech. I don't think so. I think
that is what is unfortunate.
Yeah, he set out to show who is the real bad man. That's what he did, And he talks about intimidation, but that is what he set out to do.
Oh, that was very intimidating. That speech was nothing short of intimidation. Nothing short of intimidation.
Jerry and Beverly, could I just throw my little 2 cents in here? Jerry, I agree with you when you said that his speechwriter really let him down. No question about that. The man said a lot of things, which I agree with. He's concerned about a lot of things that are happening in Dominica, and who can disagree with the things that he was saying? But you know what really, really hit me? This man spent 20 minutes, just a little over 20 minutes, talking to the Dominican people about all the bad, all the evil that's happening in there right now and the repercussions. But at no time did I hear that man refer to why he had to make that speech last night. This speech was made about just a little over 24 hours ago. At no time did he say, well, this, I understand, is what brought it on. Didn't that strike you guys?
No, but that's the point. Because as far as he's concerned, there was no portion of the blame that could ever lie at the feet of the government. It was blame, 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 blame. And what he tried to do at every turn is to make sure that that Linton was the focus of the blame, which in itself is not true, because there is a concerned citizens group who, by and large, is also going about doing their own thing. There's no mention of them. And they have made it quite clear, this is concerned citizens group, that they take their own actions, they have their own. Am I right?
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
I've watched it. They don't mix necessarily with the opposition. They do their own thing. But he never. And the other point that the Prime Minister disappointed me with is when he said that the bishop was threatened. That is so not true.
Yeah.
That is so. I watched that thing live when it was happening. And I went back and I have looked at it again and again. And I even spoke to somebody who is fairly close to the thing. And I said, listen, your bishop failed. He should have just stopped. And, I said, history, he will actually regret the way he walked through that place. But the way the Prime Minister framed it is as if the people, there were senior police officers right there. They'd have been dotish to attack the bishop with all these people right on their shoulders. It's just stupid. But he made it out that these guys so threatened the bishop, and it's just no. I feel, irrespective of what, we must stick with what really happened.
But one of his spin doctors, one Charlie John, was very quick in putting out a news release with the headline, Lennox Linton's brother assaults bishop. And Catholic bishop assaulted by Lennox Linton's brother. And I'm like, these people are so vicious.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
Of course they know what they're doing. That's why they are vicious. They're not making any mistake. They know exactly what they are doing.
That's Charlie John's work. Charlie John's work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably the same person who wrote the speech, because
He used to be in St. Kitts. He came to Dominica, now he's in Barbados.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But he's in Barbados, but he's there in the middle of what's happening in Dominica.
Yeah, he's there. Yeah, but
directing what's happening in Dominica for sure.
He's on site.
That's once the cash is flowing.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he is.
Yeah,
But from my standpoint, what was most disheartening and disappointing and saddening about that speech, quite apart from the observations that you have made, is that there was no attempt to identify with or to identify what got us here. Why are we here? Why are there even protests? What are the concerns? And he missed, I think, a really important opportunity, and that's the leadership point that you raised, Jerry, to say, look, I too have these concerns. I brought in the joint mission to look at these issues. These issues of how we modernize and upgrade our, electoral system and processes and so forth and so on. He stayed absolutely clear of that, because once he had done that and he saw the recommendations from the joint mission, he, as you know, he rubbished it. Getting back to what makes a leader and what makes a follower in politics is that, notwithstanding that there is a risk involved, but the potential benefit of being that inclusive, expansive, statesman-like person, that even, and particularly at this stage of a campaign, the day before, I'm sure there would have been some undecideds who would have said, but this is an invitation to us to sort of, come along and come together and do something, and that there are issues, but he missed that, but really it's clear because he has no intention of healing the nation. That's not his intent at all. Because his tactic, his strategy has been to divide and conquer. And to use money, to use utterances, to use favors, to use appointments and disappointments. And
when all that fails, you bring in the RSS.
And when all that fails, to use guns and tear gas, and even if it means abusing a regional mechanism like the RSS, then so be it. That's what he's prepared to do, and that's what, so it really just for us, was a reaffirmation of why he is entirely unsuited for the position that he has held, and certainly unsuited to hold it for any longer. Somehow or other, looking at his demeanor in that presentation, you get the impression that he now realizes it. You know, the countenance, the eyes, the assuredness, it's gone. And so, you know, maybe he was asking our help. Give me a nudge me over the edge. Well, yeah, we're going to do that in the morning. But so,
Yes,
but I'll tell you this. I mean, looking at his body language over the days that I've looked at it, Monday night there was a resurgence in his confidence.
But you see,
and maybe that is when the decision was made for the RSS. And since then, he has been. But if you look deeply into his eyes, you can still see the fears in there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's the eyes that tell it all. There was an attempt to use it as a last minute. It was, in fact, his last speech, you know, as the leader, and his last speech for the campaign. And so he really had to try to pick it up. But he had to try so hard that it took more out of him than he was able to put into the speech. That's what I mean. And it didn't come naturally to him like it used to.
If we were to critique Linton, what are some of the things that we think that he could have done better?
I think Linton has not yet learned to disabuse himself of the fact that he was an investigative journalist and that he is now a politician. And these two require they're two entirely different styles.
Too much information.
Yeah, he tries to cover everything.
Yes, too much information.
And it ends up being overwhelming to his audience. And you walk away from it and you say, well, what was the message? What am I supposed to walk away with from this? You are impressed. It's like you remember Jimmy Carter and his command of detail and fact and so on. But when he was through, you were not sure why he said what he said. You know? And I would say that for me is something that Lennox is going to have to...
He has to learn that.
He has to correct that.
And it's training. It's just a question of training. He needs someone to take him through and you know.
And
he has to take an axe to stuff.
No, that is where his speechwriter comes in.
Right.
And I don't want us to just pass over what George said and appraised it as well. That's Roosevelt Skerrit spoke and did not get into why there is protest in Dominic.
Absolutely.
No, we come into that. But that is why I'm asking about, if we could find, did Linton make that point clear enough? That's why I'm asking about Linton's speech, so that we could go back to look at them kind of together.
Yeah, I think Mr. Linton makes that point, but I think he like, when the point is made, you need to stop.
Yeah, done. Take your hand
and I
off
think
it.
his problem is that he keeps on going because he's got more to say, but that's
not necessary.
It's not needed. It's not needed. This is a policy.
Too much information. I agree.
Too much information is a problem.
But this is very clear. Bev? True.
No, and at this stage of the campaign, people are weary.
People are tired.
Yes.
People are tired. They just
you gotta get some nice, exciting. That is really pecan and thing. People more. You keep people attention more with some pecan at this point, you know.
Yeah.
But not the nonsensical stuff. I mean, but if you could coin things in such a way that makes it capture people.
You know who has emerged as the master of that? Annette Sanford.
No, she's good.
She can speak for 3 minutes.
She's good.
And you will remember exactly what she said, it's an important thing.
She's good.
That's a talent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she.
It's just, but it's something that happens. It's just like Clinton in his first campaign when the campaign was going nowhere.
Yeah.
And then he came up with it's the economy, stupid. And this was towards the end of the campaign when they were losing steam. But just that, boom, the whole campaign changed. That was it. That turned everything around. And that is what has to happen. And but I don't think that sometimes we take these undertakings serious enough to get training and stuff for it. And it's one of the downfalls, I think. But yes, the Prime Minister would not want to touch the reason, because how do you explain that you asked 3 such significant organizations to do an assessment of your electoral system and then just cast away their recommendations out of hand? How do you explain that? So that is why you'll stay away from it and you'll focus on the fact that people are lawless, they are hooligans, they're this, they're that, and make that the sum total of what it's about. But it was that too was overworked, completely overworked.
And there's an interesting. Sorry, go ahead, Debbie.
Sorry, I want to ask Dwyer if he heard Roosevelt Skerrit's call to arms speech last night.
No, I didn't. I'm sorry to be late, folks. I had a little errand to run. No, I didn't hear the speech. I didn't hear it at all.
There's a picture I'd like to hear as a senior politician. I really like to hear your view on it, you know. But let me just, a couple of the things he says. He says, after this we'll have to rebuild relations with the world. And I'm thinking, how did Dominica lose relations with the world over what is happening here again?
The world is paying more attention to us now than ever before.
I think the world is paying more attention to the Al Jazeera report more than what is happening on the ground in Dominica right now. Because he is the one who has to go and rebuild his image. And that is, he may be able to do that among his followers in Dominica who do not seem the least bit moved by all of these criminal actions that have come out in the...
But Bev, in their eyes, there's nothing to rebuild.
Exactly. Precisely so. So I am using even the wrong word there because they are not fazed. It has not bothered them what they have seen.
There's another interpretation of, you remember he used the word not build back, clean up. There's a clean up to be done after the election. Well, the interpretation of that is actually quite ominous. Because there is evidence after the last election in 2014 of, there was a list which was in the hands of private and public security people of persons who had to be part of the cleanup if they had lost.
Oh.
Wow.
There is another list if they win.
Wow.
So we're not dealing here, remember, the person we're dealing with, and that's why, it's one reality. This person has rubbed shoulders with former ministers of petroleum of Nigeria who stole, who had $53 million in cash in her home, which she had stolen from her government. You're dealing with NG Lap Singh, who is also now in custody, and whom is a Chinese citizen who was involved in the gambling in Macau, a huge part of it, a huge part of money laundering, a huge part of all sorts of crazy, funny deals. But he's referred to by this Prime Minister as my friend. Ali Reza Monfared, a former senior member of the Secret Service of Iran, who was commissioned by his government to find a way around the US oil embargo on Iran, found a way, and in the process, siphoned money off from his country's revenue to his personal accounts, and then
you doing the same thing, and in a way enriched himself. You make
and enriched himself. And then he became one who siphoned off money from Dominica's revenue stream, which legitimately should be in the treasury, and became super rich himself. So that's who you're dealing with. If that's the type, if that's the character type, any number plays. We in the Caribbean tend to take things lightly. We always joke about things. We sing calypsos about things, and we never, until it's too late, accept that we too have nurtured and germinated some of the worst character types on earth from among our midst, and that we know them, and we tolerate them, and we still refer to them as honorable.
Yeah, because we are caught up with personalities.
They are very clear.
That's the problem.
They are very clear of what they have to do to stay in those positions. And they can do it.
Afi, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Unfortunately, I can't offer too much to this particular discussion, because all I'm up to date on is some of the videotapes that I see. And I'll speak to a couple of them. But what is Mr. Linton offering the people of Dominica in terms? My primary interest is the governance agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and I'm asking because I don't know. I've not seen the manifestos. I've not heard the meetings of either party. What I'm interested in is the governance agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'll tell you this before you answer my question. I saw some video today of some people lighting fires by the airport.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me of an experience that we had here in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be careful with what I say. But when citizens, and that guy who spoke, who said he has a brother-in-law who's a police officer and so forth, I found him to be extremely eloquent and passionate, and a man who had just had enough. And the people who are lighting those fires to smoke out the airport are brave people and not villains, not criminals. And where I take it is, what is it that happens in a country that drives people to such things? He says he has two machines. I think he lives in Portsmouth or somewhere close by there. He has two machines, and both are down. They can't earn any money for him. Economic deprivation, social ill treatment, political favoritism, and on and on and on and on and on. So I just wanted to mention that as an aside. I saw that today.
Okay.
And I said to myself, this is just me. I am not preaching this to anybody. And the guy said, listen, we don't want trouble. We don't want trouble with the police. We don't want trouble with anybody. But we're fighting for something we believe in. I'm paraphrasing him.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that to be admirable, I must say.
Mm-hmm.
So, Afi, what is Mr. Linton's governance agenda? What is his promise? That's another word I like to hear anyway from politicians. What is the undertaking?
Yeah, well...
By the way, I made two promises when I was a politician.
What are they?
One, I would work hard. And 2, I would work fair. I never made one other promise to the people. And I kept both. And I kept both.
Absolutely.
So, Afi, I'm keen to hear what you're subject to George and the boss there, Beverley, allowing the time for that.
I'll be very brief because it just to be respectful of everybody's time.
Yeah.
One of the things that strikes me about what he brought to the politics, because he only he came into politics 10 years ago, was a team approach to things, which was in sharp contrast to the styles of most other politicians, from Eugenia all the way up, Edison and so on. And he didn't make a promise about it because that was his style, naturally. And I think he took it from Philip Nassif, his work with Philip Nassif at Coconut Products, and then subsequently his training with Colgate Palmolive. You know, this corporate world, they operate as teams. And he brought that into and he transformed the political party that he became leader of in a matter of a year. That cuts to the core of a new structure for governance where people are allowed to and are expected to bring something to the conversation because it's also going to be listened to. That's number one. And that's how he has, if you will, managed the political organization, which is the party. So I think he brings that to the table. The other thing he brings to the table, I believe, is that he is very quick to establish where his knowledge ends. In a conversation, he will get to a point and say, okay, that's about what I know about this, but you guys are the experts, let's talk. Which is something, in my experience of politics, I don't know too many politicians that have, if you will, done that, or that do that get to the point where you say, you know, I really don't know. But let's talk, and you help me find out, and let's do this together. It's an extension then of the team thing, but it's a personal attribute that I find quite significant. The other thing he brings, and I'm speaking about what you might call intangibles, and then we can talk about some of the tangibles. The other thing I think he brings that also is a standout is that he's brutally honest. He has, in all his years of work in the regional media, in the corporate world here, there's not been one hint, far less a story, about improper behavior when it came to staff or money. And so far in his career, not one attempt to make something like that stick has worked. So that element of openness and honesty, which my experience tells me is a critical part of a new governance architecture. Tangible things. He comes from that community of Marigot. And that Marigot community is a Methodist community. Stoic, disciplined, hardworking. Pride in education and achievement rewarded highly and recognized by the community. So that's where he gets whatever he gets from. And all the people I know from that, like Dr. Wati and all those kind, that's where they get their ethic from. But it also drives this reality, which will connect to what you saw in those videos. The Hospital of Marigot, which has existed prior to 5 years ago, existed for over 35, going on 40 years, was actually built by that community, not by any government. And it was built during the time, or right after Melville Hall Airport was built. Then it was upgraded over the years. Then 5 years ago, Dwyer, that hospital was shut down. So we have an airport without the services of an airport, of a hospital, and we have about 20% of the population of the country lives in the catchment area for that hospital, and they have no hospital and have not had a hospital. They don't even have a clinic. They don't have doctors' quarters. They don't have nurses' quarters. All that went into disrepair and was never repaired. And that only was the case because of the community has never supported the Labour Party. Well, I won't say never. The last person that it supported in the Labour Party was W.S. Stevens. That's how far back it goes, when Edward Oliver LeBlanc was premier. But after that, it's been Freedom and then United Workers' Party. So it's punishment. So, and some of the people you saw on that video, and it gets a little kind of passionate, they have lost their wives, trying to drive their sick wives to the Roosevelt Hospital, which is 35 miles away. They've lost their children, trying to drive them to Portsmouth when the children got asthma attacks. Asthma seems for some reason to be highly prevalent in that block of the country, that part of the country. So those people have lived and suffered with that. So for them, and that is why the issue of healthcare, not just a hospital, healthcare meaning training up,
Yeah.
so that becomes a part of the program that he talks about, not just for his home community, but that is actually how it used to be in Dominica. Because there was a time when, under the tutelage of Dr. Carissa Etienne, who is now the head of PAHO, Dominica had the best primary health care system in the world. And PAHO and WHO used to send people here to be trained in primary health care. He wants to bring that back. Because right now, everything has to go to the Rosa Hospital, 35 miles from the Melville Hall area.
Let me ask you, with regard to, again, subject to George and our other bosses here, what about integrity in public life, freedom of information, procurement and contracts administration, the integrity and independence of the public service?
That has been a part of the work that he did. In fact, he was, along with Yvonne Asif and others, members of the first Transparency International local branch, and that goes back far. He was a very strong advocate as a media person for.
So are these things?
Freedom of Information Act and all these things are in their manifesto.
These things are first priority for them?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I would say good governance is probably his top priority. Good governance meaning some of these things I'm hinting at, but he's also, because he comes from a highly productive part of the country, very concerned about getting people working again.
Now remember, earlier on, and I'm not cross-examining you.
No.
And I wouldn't be capable of doing that.
Your cousin tried once.
I take it he didn't do a very good job. But you said his mentality is to build team.
Yeah.
But all of your references in your answers are to him, not to his team. Save and except that earlier on, when you said that he may be a little bit on the verbose side, you mentioned a lady called Miss Sanford, as succinct and eloquent and so forth. So tell me about
the team,
a couple of these people in his team. Tell me about her, because I am looking for a female prime minister. I'm fed up with the men, really. And I've messed up the world.
In 10 years' time, she'll be...
in 10 years' time?
She'll be the first Kalinago prime minister of the Caribbean.
Oh, she's Kalinago as well?
Yeah, she's Kalinago.
But why 10 years?
That's her timeline.
Oh, that's her timeline.
But believe you me, the press keeps asking her.
Okay.
Okay, he's also got in his team right now 5 women, which is the
5.
highest number that any major political party has ever had in Dominica. All of them are senior level, high performance, experienced persons. 2 head teachers, as we
Yeah.
and others have worked in, if you will, in community and IT.
Anybody from the private sector?
Yeah, I'm coming to that. He's got persons from the private sector. Let me see who he has.
Val is going to be. I mean, he might not be inside. Val what's his name?
He has an engineer who has his own engineering firm.
Yeah, that's private sector. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's Felix Thomas, the guy from Ho. And that's one. He has 2 other guys who have been in agriculture and agro processing, and so they've done that kind of work. And then he has attorneys. He has 2 attorneys, Joshua Francis and Ronald Charles. He has 2 economists, and so on. So it's a really exciting team. A really good team, a mixture of really highly trained persons alongside some experience. These are the guys who have been at it for some time.
Okay. And let me add something here, Dwyer, that he might not mention now. I think he also has, you have people like Thompson Fontaine in the background.
Yeah.
They have a cadre of people who, some of them who I felt should have come forward more to the forefront, right? Because they have it, but they chose to stay outside. But if he has these people who gives him support and who are there with him, and he takes instructions, he can. And if his team, then all he has to do is lead the team.
And he sings and writes calypso and judges calypso.
That's who.
Really? Okay.
Really? That's who.
So
who does that?
Lennox.
Oh, he writes calypso and sings.
Yeah. So I mean, it's as far as we see, he's managed to pull together a good first team, and gathered around him are people, retired persons like myself, and other retired persons, like Trevor Burton and others like that. Who make our thinking available. Herbert Suki Winston, the bread man, the bakery man. And so it's really he's been able to make us feel comfortable enough to be able to do some work with him.
Is there a very recent poll out, or both sides have polls which say that they win respectively?
No. Actually, interestingly, the Labour poll doesn't say it's going to win. The Labour poll says that there seems to be a lot of voter apathy, and there's a very high incidence of undecideds. That's what Peter Wickham concluded. He did not do a constituency by constituency thing. The last
they might have done it and not shown you.
His previous 2 polls were constituency level polls, which showed the Labour Party winning 7, and the opposition party winning 11, and a few undecided constituencies. The previous polls and the last 3 polls for the United Workers' Party showed those numbers actually repeated themselves. That Labour definitely, I give Labour 7 seats, clear, definitely.
And you give UWP how many clear?
I give them 11.
So they will win the election?
They could win. But you know how it is.
With 11 they win?
Well, okay, let's say they should win.
Okay.
But our Prime Minister is trying to import 8,000 voters. Okay?
But it looks like some people are trying to block that import, put a ban on them.
Yes.
From both within and outside.
Yeah, within and without.
But there are people outside who don't want them to come.
Yeah.
But
You have friends
isn't that
outside.
similar? Isn't that similar to what happened in your last election?
Absolutely.
Where the polls were delayed for the planes to land and somebody had screwed that up royally in New York?
Well, what happened is that chartered a plane, and they had the crew waiting. That was the incumbents. They had the crew waiting. It's a charter.
Yeah.
And they were trying to round up voters quickly. It was somebody on behalf. It was not the party itself. It never is the party itself. And so they were scrambling for people in the tri-state area, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, even down to Pennsylvania and so forth. And the plane waited at an airport for so long that the crew, based on its union hours and its obligations, ran out of time.
Yeah.
So they had to get another charter at another airport, which was 40 miles away. So that at 8:20 the night, I happened to be driving on the highway here, going westwards on the airport to see a massive jet coming down to land, filled with Labour voters. The only problem was that the polls had closed.
Yeah.
Well, don't suffer quickly enough because the then supervisory election did everything to keep it open. You forget that.
The then supervisory election was a bad choice. As
I agree, but he did what he could to keep it open.
No, he wasn't going to be allowed to keep it open. What he did was put a pause on the announcement and the counting, but they were not going to be allowed to keep the doors. Once, you know, the old rule, once you're in the line at 6 o'clock, you'll vote, but you can't come at 8:30. And funnily enough, on that plane was a permanent secretary who had been sent up to New York to round up the voters.
Wow.
Well, a permanent secretary who went up to New York to assist, I take it, and former minister and ambassador, envoy, both came down on the late plane and weren't allowed to vote. So it had a kind of take that in your tail kind of finish to it, you know? So I personally don't believe that people living overseas should vote. That's my view. I used to think differently before, and it's not a change of convenience. I just thought it through. I think you should have to live not only in the country, but in the constituency. Once we're going to have that system, otherwise it's made a nonsense of, it's a mockery. Anything other than that.
Agreed.
Mind you, it might not be the best system for us, the constituency system, but as long as we have that, it makes no sense if you live in Marigot and you could vote in Point Michel. Makes no sense.
Yeah.
Nonsense.
But beyond that, my problem with that, my real ultimate problem with that is that a person comes in, votes to put a government in place that they don't have to live with.
And going back the next day.
And going back. And where they have come from, things are properly managed and so on and so forth. But you come to just do that because you get a plane ticket and $300. You come to do that and go back.
Well, you see, the thing, you know, nobody has gone to jail for this, you know, and that is treating. That is treating. That's, I mean, it's.
Yeah.
But the parties don't do it. The benefactors do it. And of course, after the election, this is, maybe I've said it on this program, elections around these islands generally are like a dance between the politician and the businessman. The crowd is there to watch them dance. Their audience, and they are given a little this, a little ham at Christmas and turkey and so on, and really made, well, I don't want to say made fools of, but taken advantage of. But after the election, when you pay $300,000 for a plane, or whatever, for whatever, I mean, you're not doing it out of the goodness of your heart. You're a businessman. Your heart is in your pocket. So you have to be repaid. And that's one of the reasons that I turned against overseas voters, because it placed too much reliance on a few private pockets which want to be refunded. And that militates against democracy. And when democracy suffers, you know who feels the pain worst? The small man.
people.
The
Same-
small
Same.
man,
Yeah, the same ones who collecting the ham and the rum.
well, that's their pay.
Mm-hmm.
But the same principle applies, except there have been some changes in terms of who those businessmen are. Those businessmen, in the case of our partner here, are not locals. They're all
Well,
external.
well,
Yeah.
when you are in the citizenship by investment business athlete, and people can do so much so quickly, the local guys are small players, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know,
Big money.
500,000 EC dollars is chump change. Chump change.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
except they can use their gas stations and other business to facilitate the transfer of the funds, you know.
Oh, you know. It's
But really and
racket.
truly-
It's a racket. It's a racket.
If the FIU is doing its job, if the
Touché.
FIU is doing its job, that should never happen. Because there is no way that the quantities of monies that come through could be could relate to a gas station function. So it just shows that the whole system is corrupt.
Yeah.
You said
Because-
if. You started that sentence with the word if, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I know. but seriously, this question of that whole business of who really the voters are just the props.
Farms.
I'm not calling them pawns, no, just the props in the system.
The voters are cannon fodder, really.
Cannon
Yes.
fodder.
Cannon fodder. They just get used and abused and discarded. You know, I mean, that's really what it is. That's why the democracy project has become a bit of a farce, especially as those who actually control the financing and the strategizing are generally outside of the country. I mean, you have guys living in Barbados who are the chief strategists for a campaign in Dominica. Some are here, but really a lot of it is done electronically or on the phone or whatever. You know, it's not. They don't. Even, it's kind of remote. It's like modern business. And then you have guys on the other side of the world. You know.
I think modern politics is modern business.
So it's,
You're right.
Cambridge Analytica is a business
It's a
Yeah.
business.
that helps you in the business of politics.
You know, and if
Big
you have
business,
21
big money.
candidates and you have to launch 21 candidates and your average cost per launch is 1.2 million, that, you know, you can't be going and talk to Astaphan or Nassif or Brisbane to make contributions to that. You know, I mean, you crazy? You have to go.
No, but in the first
Yeah.
place, why does this launch have to be so expensive? Why?
Well, because you know his strategists and advisors have come up with what they think is a winning formula. You have to
Listen
have
to me.
10
I
big
think-
artists, you have to have a big
Entertainment.
stage, you have to have a big this, a big that.
I was involved in practically every launch that DGCell had that in every country.
Yeah.
And them kind of figures there?
Mhm. No, I mean that.
So when you and we used to have some real high level events. So how do you spend that kind of money in one night?
Jerry,
No, madam.
Jerry,
Well, you give is the ham and the wine and the rum.
Okay. Well, so that's it.
remember-
So it's not the cost of the event.
the service of the professional to a political event.
It triples.
Okay, thank you. It inflates its
Yeah, but-
politics because you see, maybe once every 5 years they're going to get this work.
Exactly.
This year, one guy who has been, if you will, the CEO for our World Creole Festival for several years, you know, he was flabbergasted and he came out and he said, for years, I tried to get a budget for the World Creole Festival that was even smaller than the budget for launching one of these candidates. And they told me they didn't have money, and they have money to do it for 21 candidates.
There you go. There you go.
So,
Again, things
the
like,
guy freaked.
but that's a good
There
point.
you go.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Well, I hope, of course, as I said before, that nobody gets hurt between now and the result or after the result. We all pray for Dominica.
We've had injuries today. We've had young people shot by the RSS. We have
Rubber
With
bullets.
live rounds?
Live rounds, live bullets.
No, the police commissioner says no. Then his speech tonight, the police commissioner in his speech tonight said no, they were rubber bullets, that no live bullets were used.
Well, rubber bullets that go through the man's leg and come out on the other side. What kind of rubber is that?
But
Well,
what kind of guns are they using? Because if it comes to the leg, comes in and goes out the other side. If you're talking about high-powered arms, it will open a hole at the back of his leg bigger than a garage door, you know.
They are using, some of them have handguns and some of them have the long guns. So I don't know whichever gun it was used.
But tonight in his speech, he made it clear, and he separated it out by saying that he wanted to guarantee that no live ammunition was used. That they use rubber bullets.
But they use live tear gas.
Yeah.
and the live tear gas was used, just for Dwyer's information. These guys went into the village of Salisbury at 3:30 in the morning. Everybody was asleep, and they tear gassed the entire village.
Everybody was asleep?
Everybody was asleep.
So what was the justification, the explanation for that?
Well, that village had protests in the course of the day, and they had blocked.
I saw some pictures of that.
Which was way down on the west coast, on the western end of that village, where nobody really lives. So instead of going, and there were a few guys down at that side, on the blockage side, a few protesters kind of out there, but everybody else was asleep. and they tear gassed the entire village.
The commissioner of police says no.
What did he say, Jerry?
Well, let me tell you something.
He said that didn't happen?
Yes. He said that he said there were two groups, right, that presented a problem. Now, where I have an issue is where I saw this morning, not 3 o'clock, this morning, that video where somebody was up in the hills and firing tear gas canister into the housing area.
That was happening up until 11.
And that was high daylight.
Yeah, big broad day.
Jerry, when he says somebody, like who?
Well, it has to be the police or whoever.
Or does it? Maybe
it was the police. It was.
I'm wondering whether tear gas canisters are finding themselves in the hands of operatives.
Yeah.
Anything's possible these days, eh?
Not yet here. Nobody. But in any case, to expel and discharge the canister, you need a piece of equipment, which is not not generally available.
Generally.
So anyhow, we are at that stage right now, and who knows what's happening even as we're speaking now, gentlemen.
That's true.
But,
I hope
what can you say, Afi, about readiness of the polling stations for tomorrow?
Everybody seems ready. All arrangements, I must say, both major parties. There have been several training sessions run by the electoral office for returning officers and presiding officers and whatnot, agents and stuff like that. I must say, I know several persons who have been doing that for some time now, and who said that it's been really comprehensive. And all the ballot boxes were supposed to be transported out to the polling stations tonight, because the polls open tomorrow morning, either at 6 or 7 or whatever it is.
Where is the counting done? In the polling station?
The first count is always done at the polling station.
The first count?
Yeah, and that's what they call the preliminary count.
And where is the final count done?
Done at the police station headquarters.
In Roseau?
Yeah, in town.
So
all the boxes have to
come from Portsmouth to Roseau?
Yeah.
But that's a security nightmare, Afi.
Yeah, of course it is, Dwyer.
Absolutely.
Of course it is. And so, I mean, and the boxes go into the custody of the police.
Exactly.
Well, I suppose agents from both parties will be in the convoy.
They'll be in the convoy, not in the vehicle where the boxes are.
But why wouldn't an agent from each party be in the vehicle?
Well, because funny things happen to boxes along the way.
Well, not if the agents are present.
No, but the agents are not in the boxes are not in sight of the agents when they're being moved.
Yeah, but I don't think
They
that-
should be.
Yeah, that
I
should
agree
they
with
should
Dwyer,
be.
they should be.
I mean, come on. I mean, that's
And I mean, that's an easy fix.
easy fix. Easy fix. I remember when I used to come to Dominica as a small boy. Well, not even as a small boy. Later on in life, and I drive from Melville Hall to Roseau.
Mm-hmm.
I have a brother, a fond memory, Jamie. After knows Jamie.
Of course, yeah.
Jamie died.
Mm-hmm.
But Jamie we used to have to stop the car 3 to 4 times on the ride from Melville Hall to Roseau for him to puke. You get car sick.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I could well imagine the ballot boxes not properly monitored, and I'm not speaking ill of the police, but if they're not properly monitored, the boxes could puke a little bit.
Yes.
And lose weight coming into town.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Or they could find a long lost missing cousin box.
Yeah.
Along the way. Yeah. So yeah.
No.
Listen.
We also in St. Kitts, and I don't know why, a small place like this, we don't count at the polling station, at the constituency level.
Yeah, that's
everything goes into no, we don't do that here. Everything comes into the central location.
Okay.
But at 6 o'clock the following morning, we still haven't completed the process. It's preposterous.
A little place.
You know, you have a formal setup at the constituency level, at the polling station, where the votes are assimilated from that constituency, have the appropriate set of personnel there, representation from all of the parties, all of the proper stakeholder groups. You do the count there, and that's the end of it. That's the final count. And so by 11 o'clock, you're finished.
No. Nope.
I could see them coming in for validation, but by 11 o'clock in these countries, and more so in St. Kitts and Dominica, I think we have about 38,000 registered voters here. Population of 55 or so thousand.
Well, we have.
This is how
our numbers are different. Yeah.
Yeah, you have more voters than people.
That's right.
That's an achievement.
Yes.
This is how, again, the OECS and CARICOM useless, because Grenada has a superb counting system. Polls close at 6, and by 8 o'clock they finish counting, because they have this electronic system, and it works beautiful.
It's absolutely stunning.
Beautiful.
It's stunning.
Why everybody can do that?
Exactly. And that was developed here. Local guys here developed that software, and I tell you, it works so beautiful.
Yeah.
Why is it not exported to the other islands?
Why is it not imported enthusiastically? Imported enthusiastically.
Yeah. Exactly. But you see,
I was waiting to say this for a while.
Let's take a break.
After I see, no. Okay, we take a break after I finish speaking. No, after I saw what happened in the Vinci election, well, it became clear last election because of what happened. The whole system sucks. When you heard what came out of court in the petitions cases, could you believe that in one of the constituencies, the returning officers lost all of what is called the Form 16. Now, the Form 16 is the form for the accounting. How many people voted, how many people didn't, spoil votes. All of the Form 16 were lost.
Really?
Yeah.
It's quite an achievement.
It is proven in court that he was still counting while the Prime Minister was being sworn in a one-seat majority. Yeah.
That's another achievement. I want to meet this guy.
Listen, in several of the polling stations, one had 115% of people voting. Another one had 110, and the other one had 100. Now, which in anything possible do you have 100% of the people turn up for anything.
One time, Dr. Duvalier won an election in Haiti.
Listen
And
to it.
no, this is a fact. And he got 99.9% of the vote.
Yes.
And he says, the people have spoken. And that was it. He got 99.9% of the vote. So if he could get 99.9% of the vote in Haiti, which is a country I have nothing but respect and appreciation for, why you can't get 115% turnout in St. Vincent?
We need to take a break, is right. We need to take a break.
Alec, we're starting work on the house soon, and I'll need your help.
Sure. What do you need?
I got a service application checklist from Grenlec's website.
This looks easy.
It is. We need a new service.
That's option A.
So wherever there's an A, that's something we must do in order to get the service.
So the other things without an A don't apply?
Exactly. The checklist shows us what documents to bring, the fees, and how soon we'll get the service.
So that you realize for all services, we must complete the right application form, have a valid photo ID, and a certificate from the electrical inspector?
That's right. The electrician will help us apply to the ministry for a certificate of inspection. So we'll use the checklist to get everything we need before going to Grenada. This will make the process smooth and save lots of time.
Okay, might as well get started.
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try their sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Can I have a chicken lunch, please? Large.
Real nice today.
I don't want that.
But you just asked for a chicken lunch.
I don't have problem with the lunch. Afraid the container.
What is the problem with it?
These styrofoam containers, they don't good for the environment. They shorten with life.
What foolishness you telling me? So what you want me to use?
Put my food in this.
Where you get that?
At the food fair, where you could get all biodegradable food boxes and disposable food supplies like cups, plates, anything you could think about. Name it, it's there. And they don't harm the environment. Food fair, taking the lead in cleaning up and protecting the environment. Hey, like you take me advice, you get in your biodegradable food supplies.
Well, girl, I supporting who supporting the environment. That is why I shop in at food fair.
Food fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets. Products distributed by Hubbard's agency, Kirani James Boulevard.
Why wish upon a star, for a bank is better by far. Whatever you're wishing for this Christmas, will give you low interest and no fuss.
Co-op Bank is making Christmas wishes come true. Fix up your home, treat your loved ones, and get everything on your Christmas list this year with our no-fuss loans. As we count down the 12 days to Christmas, you can win awesome prizes every day. Special terms and conditions apply.
Christmas wishes come true with Co-op Bank and you.
All right, Pilgrims, we are back for our final segment. Take it away, Bev.
Yes, take it away, Jerry.
I like that, Auntie. I like that. Token of appreciation. Folks, we're just having some off-break chat about some of the things that happen in our elections and why we have to be very, very vigilant. There's no system that is foolproof. And I can say that after I've seen the stuff that happened in the St. Vincent 2015 election. And I was just making the point that one of the other places they go is to buy the agents. So the agent goes to the bathroom. Do I have to finish the scenario?
No.
No, we understand. You know?
Okay, all these things you have to watch.
You get it
But you
off
see,
worse.
stuff like that comes down to integrity of the
Jerry,
people.
if I tell you I don't understand, will you explain in detail, or was that
Too complicated. It's too complicated. We don't have enough time.
Yeah. Listen, I can put it in a nutshell. When it is time, if you're at an OS session and there is something to vote on and you can't support it, but you can't vote against it, you have an urgent need to answer a nature call.
How long is it?
Say good as absent.
Oh, dear, baby.
But let me tell you, these people know. In Trinidad last week when they had the election, well, this week they had the actual local government election. But last week, I think I brought it up here, I can't remember.
Yes.
The whole question of the ballots being printed badly. But they picked it up before it happened. Because what was happening, the way the ballot was printed, the returning officer was signing in the wrong place. In St. Vincent, it is alleged that it was printed that way so that when the poll clerk has to check the ballot, they must open the ballot. And by so opening, they know who voted. Somebody is keeping account.
Open the ballot?
Yeah.
Open the ballot?
Yes. To see, I'm telling you. And that's what I say about in the Caribbean. These things are happening and we're not paying attention to what's happening.
The ballots are numbered. The ballots are numbered in St. Vincent?
They have the number of the
they are numbered.
They are numbered, yes. The number of the what do you call it again? The ID numbers and stuff, right?
The voter ID number.
But, yeah.
I think this is a topic that we need to really work with going forward.
Seriously.
To the regional standardization of electoral procedures.
Yes, we need to do that.
Yes, regional
and I will bring some of the exhibits to show you folks what I'm talking about.
Good.
Yeah, man,
right?
it's crazy.
Because these people have thought this thing through, okay? And they know what they're doing. There's no accident. So when you have to flip to see, because remember, the polling clerk must ensure that the ballot that you bring back is the ballot that they gave. That's the only way they can do it.
Yeah.
So when they flip it, they can see how you voted. If somebody in there is keeping count, they know how many ballots they have to replace by. Why do you think you can get 115% voting?
Yeah. Because you realize, you have to do a little top up here and a little top up here.
No, this is serious business. And it's sad when we can't run some, to me, the one thing I've come to learn, that at the end of the day, when it comes to our governance in our country, all of us have one thing. One. You know what that one thing is?
One vote. Nothing else. But
and if we allow them
all of us should have one vote.
Yes, well, you understand what I mean? But if we allow them, if we give them too much liberty to mess with that, then that is where the whole thing falls apart.
But Dwyer's quip is actually reality.
No, it is, yes, it is.
That a lot of people have the privilege of voting
he's right.
several times.
He's right.
Exactly.
Well, Dominica, in your situation in Dominica and Ati, every time I think about that whole thing, and I've seen 2 elections in Dominica already, every time I think about this thing, I'm trying to think, this don't make sense to me. I remember going to a polling station when where the hotel again, Fort Young Hotel. When it comes straight across by the church, there's a polling station that was right in there. And I remember going over there and standing and watching the process and saying to myself, but this is madness. This is madness.
What did you see?
You're turning up. There's no way you could identify them. There is no way to identify them.
To identify who?
The voters.
So you don't have voter ID?
No. That's one of the recommendations of the OAS CARICOM and the Commonwealth. That is what has been resisted, why we have problems in Dominica today.
And in
How
addition,
could you have an election when you don't know who that person is who walks through the door?
that's right.
It's
And no way,
madness.
We've made that advance. We've made that advance, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, we do.
We have a long way to
to
go.
me, that
but
is
we've made that
basic.
advance. Our voter ID is like a national ID card.
Right. Same
a
thing.
national ID card.
Same thing.
So if you're presenting it to a bank or whoever, say, can I see an ID or 2 ID? That's one you show. But you don't have to show the voter ID to go and vote. Your passport would do.
Well, any form of identification.
Correct.
Really.
Photo
You
ID.
understand? Any form of identification.
In
But when
our
you have
system-
zero,
Yeah,
none.
no form of ID is even requested or required.
And I'm
It's just like the States, man, Afi. That's how it is in the States.
Yeah.
No voter ID.
Yeah.
No, when you see the states have the social security numbers and all these other things that they can backtrack stuff with. They have other systems to backtrack you with, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, in the States, I'm sure they're going to facial recognition and all that very shortly.
I don't know about that one. You're going to have some challenges in the courts.
Well, as usual.
You might do that in China or somewhere, but not so easily in America.
Listen, could you believe it that the average person going to collect some money from Western Union or MoneyGram has to walk with 2 pieces of ID, but you don't vote it out?
Yeah.
Man, we have to be making jokes.
You're right. That's a good point.
No,
that's a good point.
Have to be making jokes.
That's a good point.
And
especially, sorry.
Here's that's my polling card for next week.
Wednesday coming.
Can we see it? Can we see it?
Wednesday coming.
Sorry.
Could you see?
Wow. Okay.
I can't see.
You can't see it with it. Oh yeah. But what I said to you, you don't need to bring this with you to vote. But I always bring it with me anyway, because your name is on the list. When you go there, they check your name is listed.
Yes. Here too, you have
Yeah.
voters list, yeah.
Yeah, so I've got this is my card. My ID.
How do they know that you are the person whose name is on the list?
Well, you're already registered.
Yeah, but but don't you have to identify yourself and say I am so and so?
No, they ask you for your postcode.
Postal code?
Your postal code, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, your postal code. They ask you for.
That's all?
Yeah.
Wow.
You have to confirm your postcode.
And
Your
then that
name-
allows them to match it up.
Yeah, then they know that that's the person. And you have a particular number.
Okay.
You have a number as well.
A voting number.
Yeah, you got that as well. That's mine for next week, Thursday.
You're voting next week?
Yeah.
Okay, go Boris, go.
Brexit up.
Brexit. Yeah, I'm going to vote for Brexit, isn't it?
Brexit,
Brexit done.
That's your right. That's your right, sister. That's your right. Exercise your right.
But I agree with you, gentlemen. You know, this system of elections and voting in the region is something that we really need to take up seriously.
It's disgraceful. It's one of the biggest
terrible here.
scandals hanging over this Caribbean of ours. It's a shame. When you think of the people that we've produced in literature, in politics, in the arts, in sport, and all of this excellence that we've presented to the world. And we are such small countries, and we cannot show that we have the integrity to have clean elections.
Exactly.
What does that say about us? Gangster paradise?
Gangster, that's what it says. That's
Gangster
what it
paradise?
That's what it says.
Because
but that's not a good name to have.
When you have the political leader of a party talking the way Roosevelt Skerrit talked yesterday, he's a gangster. You know? When you
Beverley,
have
the sad thing about it is that he's part of a choir. He's not a solo singer.
Oh no!
That's right. That's right. And the choir is there with him.
Yes,
that's
a choir.
That's why the RSS is in Dominica, because it's a choir. And it's just, you mentioned the word integrity, Dwyer, and that is what we are missing in public life. As I have seen such support for Roosevelt Skerrit, even with all the revelations about his criminal behavior. You know, and yet still people are there supporting him and behaving as if it's no big thing.
No big thing. Yeah.
It's no big thing.
But again, that is not new. Remember, the Jews told whoever it was, Herod or whatever, give us Barabbas.
That's right.
Crucify that other one.
That's right.
No,
the thing is to make sure
listen,
people, if people are enlightened.
We're not putting them people in the same category with that.
Oh, but the principle is the same.
No, no, I understand the point he's making, but we cannot put them people in the same category.
You mean there was?
Because the releasing of...
We have no Barabbas.
No. The releasing of Barabbas was divine.
We have
well, maybe this is divine.
No.
This is diabolical then.
Exactly so. Precisely so.
But I'll tell you something, Beverly. I'll tell you something. Having leaders possessed with integrity is the first step, or I don't know if it's the first step, it's one of the steps.
Mm-hmm.
But one would hope that with more integrity at the top, that integrity will be infectious and become viral among the body politic.
Yeah.
Because an essential component in their modus operandi is to contaminate and corrupt the ordinary people.
Yep.
Compromise them.
Yeah.
So that is why,
exactly. That is why people who would ordinarily be good and nice and go to church on a Sunday or go to mosque or whatever, they're nice, whether they go to church or not. When you see come to politics, they turn beasts on you, especially if you don't agree with them. And sometimes they don't even know what they're agreeing to because they're not informed.
That's right.
In fact, they become more argumentative the less informed they are because they're protecting something. That little peanut of knowledge that they have, or information, it could be misinformation. Protecting it as though it's a plantation.
Well, that's what it is.
But here's the problem.
My father had something he used to say, Dwyer. He says, a little knowledge is very dangerous.
He was right.
It's a very dangerous
He was
thing.
right.
Yeah, but this system of election, it's something we have to look at it, put our notes together and see what can be done about this thing called voting. As to educate the electorate is a big job. It's a huge job because they have drank so much Kool-Aid of so many different colors that I tell you, they're suffering from indigestion and they don't even know. It's like the farmer. Yeah.
But
I will take the approach of the bank on that issue. When you go to the bank don't show you counterfeit money. They show you real money until you're sick of seeing it. Because the principle is, when you know the real, even when you're sleeping, counterfeit, this thing. And we need to get back to some of the, like we talked about the question of the design of the ballots and some of these. Forget all the Kool-Aid. We need to go back to what it ought to be. And that's what we need to tell people.
Yeah, and that's what I say, educating the electorate is a big job because they're not gonna go from zero to hero overnight. The brainwashing didn't happen overnight, It went on over generations until we have what we have now. As you hear people talking about they were born this and they're born that and everybody in their house is this and everybody in their house is that. How can you inherit political party you support?
There's a related issue that I hope we get some time to discuss in the near future. It's related to the elections thing, but of course elections I see as part of the bigger picture issue of democracy. And I have discovered in my life so far that one of the reasons people don't really embrace democracy is that democracy is hard work. To make it work is hard work. And when you see people begin to understand that this thing involves me or requires me to read this paper or to come to this meeting or to think and come up with some suggestions or to make myself available to the once, why you talking about it? It's a job? You paying me to do this? You paying me to do this democracy thing? And I'm seeing it at every level in society, that people resist giving support to this democracy thing or anything related to it. The minute they understand that it's going to require them to work at it.
Yep, you're right.
We need to fix that.
That is a very profound point. You're very correct, actually.
We need to fix that.
We could do it in the schools. We could do it in the schools.
Yeah, that's where it needs to be, Dwyer. That's why it needs
civics and all of these things. But you are right. And this is what explains people like, no disrespect intended, explains people like Mr. Trump getting elected to be fair.
That's what made that point earlier.
When a politician says he can stand up on Fifth Avenue and shoot you and still you get votes and gets it, it's that is a reflection on the supporter more than on the person making a statement.
Yes.
And that's a symptom of a disease that needs to be cured.
That's right.
It's a disease that has nothing to do with the head. It has nothing to do with the brain. It has no brain in it. It's a neck down disease. You see, and that's the problem. That's the problem. Dumb you down, divide you, degrade you.
That's the big one there.
And keep you dependent.
Yep.
Dumb you down, divide you, degrade you, and keep you dependent. And those are and other challenges that have to be addressed face on if we're really going to transport this Caribbean, what Ralph used to like to call this Caribbean civilization. To its place, to its rightful place in the world.
I remember that book so well. He was so proud when he gave it to us to read. You guys have to read this. You guys have to read this.
I know.
Oh boy.
But one person don't dare speak about Dominica on two fronts is him. One, he got to power by protest.
Yes.
I've been in the heart of that.
Yeah.
In fact, quickly you have 2 minutes. That brings me to a point I was walking to the supermarket this afternoon thinking this one through. That they called in CARICOM at that time. CARICOM came to St. Vincent, right? How come in all that's happening in Dominica, there's nowhere. I remember it was so bad so bad. The old airport you used to drive across the old airport in the old days. So there was still a gate at the one side, but it had wire. Now, when they came to St. Vincent, Ralph and the opposition, they had the natural route out of the airport waiting to protest the CARICOM delegation. But they tricked them. They went across the airport and cut the fence. Let Ralph and them standing.
Oh my.
So what I'm saying is that he on the issue of protest he can't speak because that's how he came to office. They now proudly call it roadblock revolution.
Yes.
And secondly, on the issue of electoral reform, St. Vincent is still in the court over challenges to the last election. Cut it right there.
Yeah.
And
okay.
The next election is due next year.
Yep, end of next year. And the matter is still in court.
And we have one next year as well. Happy good luck, man. I hope it is peaceful and productive.
Hope so too.
The people of Dominica can really be transported up.
Yeah,
they're beating for us. We're looking to you to do good things.
Okay, my friend.
Yes.
And we're certainly hoping that none of the dead people on the voters list don't come from the grave and vote tomorrow.
The cemetery will be very active tomorrow, but because the dead have to arise too.
Yeah. Oh boy,
Okay.
I tell you.
Okay, folks, thanks a million. Thank you so much. Right.
Yeah.
Be good.
We can have a couple of minutes. Anybody with any final things?
Afi, is there any station I could book into in Dominica to get last minute stuff tonight?
There's a program Eye on the Elections on Q95.
Q95.
starting at 10
Uh-huh.
and going to around midnight or a little after. And a discussion involving a number of people, Dr. Irvin Andre, Dr. Thompson Fountain, you know, good analysis. Good.
Ati,
Yeah.
I remember the last election I was there and we had a program that we used to do. And it finished at 7 o'clock. And Dwyer's cousin came in right after.
Yeah.
Oh, no. They were on, actually. They've been on since 4 o'clock. This was on Kyrie, right?
Yeah.
They were on since 4 o'clock. When I went into the studio, I never see more bottles of painkillers. Just tons of bottles. And
painkillers, yeah.
So we came in, did our piece for about an hour, and they came back into the studio and they went until midnight.
That's the election day itself?
Huh?
That was on the election day itself?
Yeah, like tonight, yes. Like tonight. And we went from 4 o'clock until 12 o'clock tonight.
Okay, all right.
We took an hour because we had an hour that we used to use. I said, but these people are crazy, boy. Stomach Tums, there was a whole bunch of Tums on the table and Advil. I would never forget that picture.
Somebody was nervous, man.
I laughed so badly, and I went and listened to them right until they were finished.
Yeah.
Well, we will surely be tuning in for the count.
Yep.
Once it begins, and following the action there as we have been over these past few weeks to see what happens tomorrow.
When do you anticipate the first counts will start coming in?
In some of the small constituencies, the polls close. Okay, the polls actually close at
6
or 4. So some of the small constituencies by 5 o'clock you have results.
4 o'clock?
Yeah.
4 o'clock.
Can't be 4 o'clock at least.
What time did it?
6.
Oh, 6. So by 7 o'clock you get the first results. And by 8:30, 9 o'clock, yeah.
You should have a declaration.
Really?
Yeah, man. Yeah, but you'll know. Because, I think whereas you will have a few nail biters, pretty much one way or the other, I think it's going to reveal itself. The results are going to reveal itself fairly early.
Pretty quickly. Okay.
And the Kalinago lady is going to win?
I think so.
Okay.
And we certainly hope so.
He's looking for somebody to make a female prime minister. Don't forget that's his mission, eh?
The what, Jerry?
His mission is to make a female prime minister.
Yes.
So he needs to know that she wins.
And we're out of time.
All right.
We're good.
Yes, you're going to wrap up, Jerry?
Yes.
Time.
Yes. Folks, thank you very much once again for being with us on another edition of Mek We Chat.